Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to thank our panel for taking the time to be here. I have to tell you, gentlemen, I think this is the greatest water grab that we have seen by the federal government in the history of the United States. The overreach of the EPA in terms of being able to control, Mr. Field, you're out of the West.
Yes,
it
sir.
is a private property right.
Absolutely
in the West.
correct.
We have state law in the West. We have priority-based systems, and we're now seeing the federal government trying to be able to step in and to be able to regulate virtually all of the waters of the United States. When you read through this, traditional navigable waters, interstate waters and wetlands, territorial seas, impoundments of the first 3 categories and tributaries, tributaries of the first 4 categories, waters and wetlands adjacent to the first 5 categories, and other waters. Does that sound like everything to you, Mr. Field?
It sounds to me once that drop falls out of the sky, it's under EPA's jurisdiction.
It's going to be under the EPA's jurisdiction. You were just talking about the ditch that you diverted off the stream to be able to get water to your cattle, to be able to irrigate, I assume, some of your fields so that you can actually grow hay, some feed for the cattle. How's this going to impact your business?
I honestly can't tell you that. That's why I'm here, sir. The picture that we had is an irrigation ditch. There's about an acre-foot of water that flows through that to a few of my neighbors right now. And the question I have and the sincere fear is the riparian pasture that's between that irrigation ditch and the tributary that flows to a water of the U.S. And the question of, am I in violation of the Clean Water Act? I subject myself to more liability today by putting the pictures on the screen and talking than I can afford to pay.
Now, do you have every sense if the EPA is allowed to be able to move forward with these rules, it's no longer your land, no longer your property, no longer your water, that it is now owned by the federal government and will be controlled out of Washington?
That's most certainly a concern, I think, that's shared by every private landowner. And an additional fear that I have, and in speaking with Mr. Parks, that I think would be echoed on other natural resource industries, is the concern that this rule, if it goes forward unchanged and unamended, that it may have a chilling impact on landowners who may not be directly involved. I lease all of my property for grazing. This may have a chilling impact, and landowner might say, boy, Jack, I'd love to help you out and lease some pasture, but I'm afraid your activity brings too much liability under the Clean Water Act. Go maybe try the neighbor.
Yeah, I think, because I think we can agree, everybody in this room is an environmentalist. We all like clean air and we all like clean water. You were describing for us an effort that you had made in terms of being able to put in some conservation. Now, if these rules move forward, if the overreach of the federal government is put into place, you aren't going to be able to afford, nor would you be willing to move into those conservation areas. Is that correct?
Well, you're absolutely correct. I would certainly not partner with NRCS or my conservation district. I would try to do what I can at a much slower pace, just on my own, because and don't get me wrong, I don't have the NRCS standards are excellent. They work perfectly, but I don't need to implement those practices exactly to the standard. I can get by with a 3-strand high tensile fence that I can build in a much faster time than a 4 or 5-strand barbed wire fence delivers the exact same benefits at a much lower cost. And again, on my operation, I've got to try to spread the dollar just as everybody else on this panel as far as we can.
And just for the point of clarity, I happen to view our farm and ranch community as part of our national defense. We certainly need to be able to feed this country. Did you state, and did I write this down correctly, there was zero outreach by the EPA to the ag community? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. There was questions were made in February requesting for meaningful dialogue and input, and again, being told to wait and see. And that's unfortunately not a very productive means of promulgating rule, and especially something that will be this effective. Or
So an agency that says you will follow the rules doesn't follow its own rules when it comes to being able to reach out and find out what the business impacts are going to be. Mr. Parks, would you like to comment on that?
Yes, sir, I would. Fortunately, our company is a member of a great trade association who made us aware of these developments and keeps us informed and in the loop. The Home Builders Association, National Cattlemen's Association, that's the type of that's why we're members of these associations. By and large, we don't have the management and the support staff to stay engaged with these types of issues. I would say, for the most part, the small business community has a cursory understanding of what's being proposed at best, and most folks have no idea the enormity that these changes could bring to the regulated community.
I see I'm out of time. Gentlemen, I thank you for your comments, and I share your concerns over this overreach by the government and the EPA.